been playing some of his clips of his comedy throughout the years. Time to bring him on. He's coming to Canton. He's going to be here in Canton, Ohio at the Canton Cultural Center Saturday, January 20th. Of course, talking about comedian Dennis Regan. He's kind enough to be joining us on the show this morning to talk about that. Dennis, good morning. Thanks for taking the time to talk to a little radio station in Canton today.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So coming to Canton here at Crackpots, we're going to get to that in a little bit. But, man, we're like I said, we've been playing some of your clips throughout the show this morning. Get ready for your appearance. Some of your stuff, especially talking about how much you hated kindergarten and school and cheating. We've all been there. But I wanted to talk about you for a second before we get into the show here that's coming up at in Canton. Comedy obviously runs in your family. Your brother, a famous comedian. How competitive were the jokes in that house growing up?
Well, Brian and I weren't the only funny people in my family. There was 6 boys and 2 girls, and they're all pretty darn funny. Brian and I are the only ones that went into stand-up, though. It's a fun family. Everybody's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. But I'm always so interested because I think comedy is, to me, it's hard. You have to be brave. You have to be thick-skinned to even attempt to get in to comedy. Did you have any of those apprehensions when you finally decided, you know what, I think I'm good at this, and this is something I can do?
Well, that's a good question. I had tons of apprehension. In fact, I didn't start doing comedy till I was 33 years old. So that gives you some idea about how much. But I didn't grow up wanting to be a comedian. I think Brian earlier on knew kind of what he wanted to do. I didn't start doing comedy until about 6 or 7 years after Brian was doing it. And I was kind of inspired by him and by, it was sort of during the boom, and I was seeing people on TV, some people that I was thinking, well, I don't know if I'm funny. I don't know if I'm that funny. I didn't grow up thinking I was that. But then I would see people, I go, I think I'm funnier than that person, or I could be. I didn't mean I had a lot of confidence in it, but I thought I'd give it a try. So I gave it a try, and it went pretty well the first open mic night, and then I kept going back, and I just had a lot of fun and enjoyed coming up with things to tell audiences and enjoyed finding out where I was right and where they would laugh. And it wasn't until after about 6 months when I remember I did a show. There was about 16 people in an audience on a Wednesday night, and that's a weird number for a crowd. It's a tough crowd,
right?
Generally. And I showed up at this club, and everybody said the crowd sucks and that nobody's done very well. And I went up and I did well in kind of tough situation. And after that, I started thinking, I think maybe I think I might have what it takes to do this for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talk about how comedy is fun, and it has these ups and downs, and he talks about taking risks and things like that. So we know the stand-up side of things, but as I was kind of reading about you, I was intrigued because I found out that you're a writer on one of my guilty pleasure binge watch sitcoms of all time, which is The King of Queens.
I was on there. They brought me in after the show was on for about 9 years, and I was on there for the last 3 or 4 years of the show.
Okay,
and that was a fun job, a fun gig, and I think I became a better comedian, a better stand-up comedian for having had that job, because I kind of had to sit around with 11 or 12 different really brilliant comedic minds, and I learned through osmosis or through just paying attention that there's different ways to approach things.
Yeah, for sure. What is that process like? And this is just pure curiosity because I love that show so much. What does that look like when you get writers and they're writing for a show and it's all comedy, and it's, making sure you have those great one-liners that attracts the crowd, laughter and things like that. How do you go about that?
So the process of writing for a sitcom, it's kind of a long process. I'll try to give you the quick bullet points, but basically, you try to break stories first. Like you'd send a few people here, a few people there. By that I mean writers would go into different rooms and come up with story ideas and see if they have a good enough story that would last 10 or 12 or 14 scenes, what the scenes would be. Then after that, if it's decided that could be a show, because sometimes you just go that route, and you go, no, we don't really have a show. It's not worth pursuing.
Mhm.
Then after that's done, then somebody would be assigned to go and write a first draft, and then that draft would become a second draft and would go through with the writers and come in. And then there would be, and then after a few months of that, you'd have the table read in front, where the actors would sit at the table on a Monday morning and read the thing, and with the guest stars that are on that week, and we'd see where we had laughs and where we had problems, and then we'd go back to work. And that night might be a real long night of trying to tweak this and tweak that and improve that or change that. And then the next day would be another long day. And then on Friday night would be the taping, where they tape it in front of a live audience. So that's kind of the bullet points of it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I always wondered how that worked. You know, and I know that there's a series of writers that all work together, but it's amazing. I love that show so much. And, you know, I had one more thing too that I had wanted to bring up. I commend you for your clean comedy. It's, you know, I love comedy. I love going to see a stand-up comic, and some of my favorite comics, I don't care whether there's cursing or there's not, but I feel like it's even harder to be funny clean, and you mastered that.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I don't always work 100% clean. I like to have the freedom to do what I want to do, but it's just the way it comes out with me. I guess I pride myself, or I try to be clever. And there's only how clever can you be when you're talking about the limited number of orifices in the human body?
Yes.
And what could, and sometimes they come up with dirty stuff. I'll come up with something that's dirty, and I'll go, I'm not sure where this would fit in my show. It would seem out of place, so I just don't bother with it. Or if this situation arises where I kind of do need something like that, I might throw it out. But for the most part, I don't book myself as a clean comedian or anything like that. I just do what I do, and I like to do a show where people don't feel like they need to take a shower after they've seen my show,
Yeah.
And that's the way I approach it.
We are talking to Dennis Regan, comedian, going to be here in Canton, January 20th. Tickets on sale now, crackpotscomedy.com. You were lucky enough in your comedy career to have appeared more than once on shows like David Letterman and Jay Leno. Those are historic television shows, or institutions in this country. What was it like to perform with David Letterman right there and Jay Leno right there, and then to be good enough that these shows wanted you to come back?
Yeah, I really appreciated getting those opportunities. They were a bit they're a bit nerve-wracking. They're not as much fun as you might think, because you're scared.
Yeah, I would be scared out of my mind.
Absolutely.
Because you can go in front of an audience, like at a club on a Friday night or whatever. You can screw up a joke and it has no consequence, And so it's like, okay, I got more jokes. And the crowd is fine, and they roll with the flow. But if you go on Letterman or something and you forget your second joke or the setup to something, and you fall on your face in front of millions of people, it's scary. It's a bit scary. And I've never achieved complete and total confidence in those sorts of situations, but I pulled it off when most of the time, or all those times I was asked to do it. I did Letterman 5 times. They kept having me back. I did the Tonight Show a couple times, and I loved it. I loved it. I had great experiences, and they were fun, and they're nice credits, and they kind of give you it's like a feather in your cap, in the business.
Sure.
No, it's a really nice feather to have in your cap. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, just for personal reasons, is reading your bio and places you performed. Letterman, Leno, I've seen all that. You've been on Comedy Central. You've been on Showtime. But it said you've performed on cruise ships, and cruises are a very big topic on this radio show, Dennis, because I can't figure out if it's the best experience in the world or the worst. And I hear stories of both, and I think to myself, how does a comedian on a cruise ship, how is that experience for you?
Mostly fun, mostly a lot of fun, but there is different cruise lines, and they do things differently as far as comedians are concerned. And some cruise lines will have you do 2 different types of shows. They might want what they would call a clean or a family show, and then later to do another show which they would call adult or something like that. And I don't really, I don't like those sorts of divisions. I do well. I can do well. I enjoy the family shows where I have to keep it clean because there might be kids in there and stuff like that. And I don't like performing for just kids. But if there's kids in the audience and there's some parents and stuff like that, I could have a lot of fun with it. And then the later shows. And then there's other cruise lines where they just want you to do a 45-minute show and repeat it twice. And you go, okay, this is I can kick butt here. And I kind of know what the crowd is. And that's a different sort of animal, you know.
Mm-hmm. So you've had.
But I enjoy it. I don't like being out there floating around in the ocean for weeks at a time. So I minimize how much I do it.
That would be my issue too. And I would just wonder what it would be like just floating out in the ocean for a week.
I'm telling you, I just heard from somebody because we were talking about this before we brought you on, Dennis, and I just heard from somebody that said it is the best experience. It's clean. It's wonderful. Because I said I was worried because I can't swim. And I just have this vision of the boat going down and there not being enough life jackets. And, to that, they kind of said, well, then maybe stay away from the cold weather one so we don't add the iceberg in.
She goes right to Titanic, Dennis. She goes right to Titanic. It's just.
Yeah, I can see her getting on board all the time, just holding on to the handrail.
Oh my gosh.
Let me count the life jackets. Let me count the life jackets.
I've got to get over the fear though, because I've been told it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, it is. Most people, I just did some in Alaska and I really enjoyed it. I was out there for a few weeks and I enjoyed it. It's a wonderful part of the world and I enjoyed it, but it's different when you've done it so much. Like I could never go back to the Caribbean or Caribbean and I'd be completely happy because I've had it. It's a bit of Groundhog Day for comedians, to go back up on the ship and now they're doing the men's hairy leg contest or whatever they're doing. And you're like, oh man, I'm done. I'm done here.
Wow.
Drink, please.
Yeah.
Oh, that is fun. One more question before we let you go. Dennis Regan again going to be here in Canton at the Canton Cultural Center, January 20th at 7:30. Get your tickets, like we've been telling you, at crackpotscomedy.com. In 2024, how hard is it to be a comedian? I just mean that with the state of how society is right now and how divisive it can be and how clutching of the pearls people can be in 2024. For you, is it harder now than it's ever been to be a comedian? And do you have to kind of always think about, all right, it's a funny joke, but am I going to piss off this guy or this girl? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I know. Sure. I know
yeah, I bet you do.
You mean. Yeah. It's tricky. Here's something that a lot of people don't realize, because of the way the world is going and that sort of thing, you not only have to worry about what offends people now, you have to worry about what will offend people 5 years from now.
That's true.
Very good point.
And I don't really mean that I really worry about it, but let me give you an example. So right now you can use the word idiot, right? You can use the word idiot and everybody goes, okay. But 5 years from now, who knows? Maybe there are people, because that's a medical term. And it's a real legitimate term. And people might be coming up and go, my uncle is an idiot. And I was offended by that term. Or they might want to cancel you for having used the term idiot a few years ago. And that's what they're doing. They're canceling people or trying to come down on people for things that they said 12 years ago when it was perfectly
acceptable.
Fine then,
right. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was really nice talking to you and getting to know you a little bit here today on the show. Again, Canton's, we're looking forward to having you here again on January 20th at the Canton Cultural Center. Tickets on sale right now, crackpotscomedy.com. It was great talking to you. We're looking forward to you coming here, and hopefully it's a great show for you and safe travels in town to get here.
Well, it was nice being on your radio show. I hope I get to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a great day,
Thanks, Dennis.